If you're an older man still masturbating the same way you did decades ago, I have a difficult truth for you. It could be quietly ruining your sexual health. That's not an exaggeration. In fact, I've seen men in their late 60s and 70s lose their erection strength, suffer from prostate issues, and experience a slow decline in intimacy. Not because of disease, not because of age, but because of how they masturbate. And they never saw it coming. I'm Dr. James, a board-certified sexual health specialist and urologist. For over 30 years, I've worked with aging men across the country, men just like you, helping them protect their prostate, restore their vitality, and enjoy a satisfying, dignified sex life well into their later years. But here's what most don't realize. What once felt harmless, even healthy, can actually become harmful if done wrong in older age, especially when it's built on outdated habits that no longer serve your aging body. In this video, I'm going to reveal 5 specific masturbation mistakes that silently damage your erections, disrupt your hormones, and slowly weaken your connection to pleasure. You'll also learn what to do instead, simple, powerful shifts that can dramatically improve your blood flow, testosterone, and confidence in bed. And stay with me, because mistake number 3, it's something almost every older man is doing without question, and it's harming you more than you think. Before we dive in, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss important advice that could protect your sexual health and vitality. And if this message speaks to you, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps me create content that truly supports you. All right, let's get into it. Starting with the first mistake, and it's a big one. Most older men don't even realize it's happening, but it's silently rewiring your brain, dulling your natural desire, and making it harder to perform when it truly matters. Let's talk about overstimulation from modern pornography and why it may be doing far more harm than good. Mistake 1. Using porn that overstimulates the brain. Let me tell you something I've seen far too often in my 30 years of practice. Stories that repeat themselves with eerie similarity. A man in his late 60s or 70s comes into my office, clearly uncomfortable, but with a quiet desperation in his eyes. He tells me he's still interested in intimacy. He still feels desire, but something isn't working. His erections are weaker. They fade too fast. Sometimes they don't even happen at all. He's tried pills. He's tried supplements. Nothing sticks. And when I ask him about his private habits, about how he masturbates, he hesitates, then admits, "Well, I usually watch something online. I need something to get me going." And that's where the light bulb goes on. Because what he doesn't know is that this seemingly innocent habit, watching fast, high-intensity pornography, isn't helping him at all. In fact, it's hurting him. Quietly, gradually, relentlessly. The truth is, as we age, our brains become more sensitive to how we stimulate them, especially when it comes to dopamine. Dopamine is that feel-good chemical your brain releases during excitement, arousal, reward. Pornography hijacks that system. It floods the brain with dopamine in massive doses. And if you're watching explicit content that's constantly changing, increasingly extreme, or emotionally disconnected, your brain can't handle it the same way it did when you were younger. Here's the part that's hard to hear. This repeated overstimulation begins to desensitize your brain's natural response to arousal. In other words, what used to excite you no longer does. Your brain builds up a tolerance. You need more intense content, more novelty, more speed. But what happens when the brain needs more stimulation than your real life can provide? That's when men start to notice that things aren't quite right. Erections become unreliable. Sensation dulls. Connection feels distant. Many even start to struggle with what we now call porn-induced erectile dysfunction, a condition where the mind responds to fantasy, but the body does not respond in reality. And no one talks about it, especially not among older men, because who wants to admit that their morning routine or late-night habit might be slowly rewiring their brain to feel less, to want less, to be less? Now, I'm not here to demonize or shame anyone. I understand why many older men turn to pornography. Sometimes it's out of loneliness, sometimes boredom, sometimes routine. But we have to be honest. Your body after 60 doesn't work the same as it did at 30. It's more sensitive, more responsive to subtle imbalances. And the way your brain handles stimulation is absolutely part of that equation. But the good news is this damage isn't permanent. I've seen men recover their natural arousal response. I've seen them improve their erections, deepen their intimacy, and reconnect with their body, all by making one essential change. They cut the cord from overstimulation. They chose presence over pixels. They used memory, imagination, physical sensation, not endless scrolling. And slowly, their body started responding again. Dopamine levels rebalanced, blood flow improved, erections became stronger. Sensation came back. If this sounds like you, don't wait for the damage to grow deeper. Every time you turn to over-the-top porn to feel something, you're sending a signal to your brain that it needs more than it should. You're teaching it to ignore real connection. And over time, that silent shift can become a wall between you and your most natural, most vital self. So if you've been relying on that screen, I want you to step back. Notice how your body feels without it. Notice what's missing. And give your brain the space to reconnect with the real, the subtle, the human. Because when you stop overstimulating your brain, something amazing happens. Your body starts to remember how to feel again. But overstimulation is just the beginning. There's another mistake I see just as often, and it's even sneakier because it feels harmless. In fact, many men do it without a second thought, but it's quietly training your body to disconnect from pleasure, to weaken arousal, and to dull the power of your erection from the inside out. Let me show you exactly what it is and how to stop it before it goes any further. If you're still here and this message is resonating with you, drop a number 1 in the comments to let me know you're taking this seriously. Now let's keep going and dive into the second mistake that could be silently working against your sexual health. Mistake 2. Masturbating without engagement or intention. One of the most overlooked and deeply damaging habits I see in older men isn't something dramatic or obvious. It's something subtle. It's the way many men masturbate out of habit, almost mindlessly, with no connection, no presence, no intention behind the act. And over time, that quiet disconnection creates a ripple effect across every area of their sexual health. Let me explain what I mean. I've had many patients, men in their 60s and 70s, who come to me feeling confused. They're still capable of arousal. They still have desire, but something is missing. They tell me they don't feel as much anymore. That the pleasure is duller, the climax is shorter, and the recovery takes longer. They assume it's just aging, but when I ask about their solo habits, it becomes clear. Most of the time, they're doing it late at night, half asleep, lying down, rushed, and entirely disconnected. And here's what I want you to hear. The way you touch yourself teaches your body how to respond. If you touch yourself in a rushed, disconnected, mechanical way, your body learns that sexual stimulation is not about connection, not about engagement, not about pleasure, it's just about release. And when that becomes the pattern, your nervous system adapts. You start losing sensitivity. Erections don't build the same way. The excitement doesn't rise. Pleasure feels flat. And before long, it's not just masturbation that suffers, it's intimacy too. Now I know life gets busy. I know that as we get older, energy wanes. It's easy to fall into a routine where masturbation is just another part of winding down. But here's what you may not realize. Your body is always learning. Even in your 60s or 70s, your brain and nervous system are being trained with every experience. And when you train them to disconnect, that disconnection shows up in the bedroom, whether you're alone or with a partner. This isn't about turning masturbation into some grand ritual. It's about being present. It's about intention. About taking a moment to actually feel, to breathe, to connect with your own body, not just out of habit, but with care. Because when you do, something changes. Your body begins to reawaken, Nerve pathways begin to fire more clearly. The brain-body connection strengthens. Pleasure becomes fuller, richer, more satisfying, and it carries over into every other area of your sexual health. I remember one patient, a retired military veteran in his early 70s. For years, he'd treated masturbation like a chore. Quick, quiet, no thought. He told me he hadn't felt real satisfaction in over a decade. I asked him to try something simple. Slow down, breathe deeply, engage all 5 senses, and most importantly, stay awake and aware during the experience. It felt silly to him at first, but within weeks he noticed a difference. He started waking up with firmer erections. His orgasms became more powerful, and his confidence returned not because of any pill or supplement, but because he changed the way he related to his own body. You see, masturbation isn't just physical, it's neurological, it's emotional, it's hormonal. When done right, it boosts testosterone, strengthens pelvic floor muscles, improves circulation, and trains your nervous system for better arousal. When done wrong, it becomes a quiet thief, stealing away the quality of your sexual life bit by bit without ever sounding the alarm. So if you've been treating masturbation like a mindless habit, I encourage you to shift. Make it intentional. Make it slow. Make it a moment of care, not just release. You might be amazed at what your body still has to offer once you give it a chance to respond. And just when you think you've seen the full picture, there's another mistake I need to show you. One that men rarely talk about, but almost all of them make. It has nothing to do with fantasy or mindset, and everything to do with something physical, something so simple it's probably been part of your routine for decades. But if you're not careful, it can quietly restrict blood flow to the most important organ in your body. Let's talk about it next. Mistake 3. Ignoring blood flow, masturbating in a seated or slouched position. This one might surprise you because it's not about hormones or emotions or fantasy, it's about something physical, something so basic that most men never think twice about it. But I need you to understand that how you position your body during masturbation, yes, even something as simple as where and how you sit, can silently sabotage your erections over time. I'll never forget one particular patient. He was 68, sharp as a tack, a retired engineer, and he came to me frustrated. He said he'd started noticing that his erections were weaker, not as full, and didn't last like they used to. He had tried supplements, changed his diet, and even exercised regularly. But nothing helped. When we spoke more about his habits, I asked about his posture, especially during moments of self-pleasure. He paused, then said, "I usually sit back in my recliner with my laptop, always have." And that's when the light bulb went off. Most older men don't realize this, but when you're sitting or slouching, especially in a reclined or hunched position, you're putting direct pressure on the pelvic region. That's the exact area where your key arteries and nerves for sexual function are located. In particular, the internal pudendal artery, which supplies blood to the penis, can become partially compressed. Over time, that restricted blood flow becomes a real problem. The body is all about circulation. Blood is what feeds your erection. Without a strong, unblocked blood supply, the penis simply cannot perform the way it should. It's not just about arousal, it's about function. And when you're routinely cutting off that flow without even knowing it, you're sending your body the wrong message. You're telling it to get aroused while limiting the very thing it needs to function. And it's not just about arteries. Your posture affects your pelvic floor as well. That's the group of muscles that helps control blood flow, erection firmness, ejaculation, and even bladder control. When you're slouched or compressed, those muscles become weak and inactive. That weakens the overall structure supporting your sexual health. It's like trying to build a strong house on soft, sinking ground. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying you need to stand at attention like a soldier every time you engage in self-pleasure, but I am saying this. If you're routinely slouched, seated for long periods, or lying on your side, you may be slowly cutting off the very thing your body needs to feel strong and alive: oxygen-rich blood. Over time, this becomes one of those invisible saboteurs. The erections fade, the nerves respond more slowly, and you're left wondering why things don't feel the same anymore. You may even blame it on age or assume it's just inevitable, but it's not. It's your posture. It's your position. And yes, it's fixable. I've had men shift from sitting to lying flat on their backs with a pillow under their knees to support their lower back and open up the pelvis. Some have tried standing in privacy or even gently stretching beforehand to stimulate circulation. These small adjustments made a massive difference in how they felt, how their erections responded, and how confident they became in their bodies again. You don't need to suffer in silence. You don't need to accept weak blood flow or poor erections as your new normal. Sometimes it's not the body that's broken, it's the habit. And now that you know, you can start changing it. And here's the thing. While poor posture quietly cuts off your blood flow, the next mistake is even more damaging. Because it doesn't just affect your body, it retrains your nervous system to rush through pleasure, to disconnect from control, and to lose the very skill that makes intimacy satisfying at any age. This next habit is one of the biggest reasons older men struggle with performance in the bedroom, and most don't even know they're doing it. Let's talk about it next. Mistake 4. Rushing to orgasm. No build-up, no control. This is one of the most common mistakes I see, especially in older men, and yet almost no one talks about it. The truth is, rushing through masturbation, treating it like a chore, something to get over with, slowly strips your body of one of the most important abilities it has: control. And the damage this does, it's not loud. It's not sudden. It's quiet, subtle, and it builds over time until one day you realize you can't hold an erection like you used to. You climax too quickly. And the pleasure? It's muted, like something's missing. I remember a man I worked with a few years ago. He was 71, proud, well-spoken, and deeply frustrated. "I can still get hard," he told me, "but I can't seem to last anymore. I feel like everything just slips away before I'm even ready." He thought it was just part of aging. But as we talked, I asked him how he'd been pleasuring himself. His answer was honest and familiar. Quick. No build-up, no thought. Just in and out, done in minutes. And there it was. His body had learned to race. Here's what most men don't understand. Your nervous system is always listening. Every time you rush to orgasm, you're reinforcing a pattern. You're teaching your body that pleasure is supposed to be fast, that arousal shouldn't be sustained, and that climax is the only goal. Over time, that pattern becomes hardwired. Your pelvic muscles weaken, your stamina drops, and you lose the ability to stretch out arousal, to enjoy the journey instead of just reaching the end. Now, when you were young, maybe this didn't matter as much. Your hormones were high, your erections were automatic, your recovery time was fast. But in your 60s and 70s, it's different. Your body doesn't bounce back the same way. It requires rhythm, presence, circulation, and control. And when you skip over the buildup, when you don't allow arousal to slowly rise, you're cutting off the very process that keeps your sexual system healthy. And here's the emotional cost of it all. Rushing doesn't just hurt your function. It also erodes your confidence. It takes away your trust in your own body. It makes you anxious about performance, about whether you'll last, whether you'll satisfy. That stress becomes part of the experience, and stress, as we know, is the enemy of good sex. But there is a solution, a simple one. You slow down. This is where the concept of edging comes in. Edging means allowing yourself to build toward orgasm, getting close, but then pulling back before you climax. You let your arousal climb, then you pause. You breathe, you feel, and then you build again. This isn't about denial, it's about control, about retraining your body to hold pleasure, not fear it. Men who practice edging often report stronger erections, more intense orgasms, better bladder control, and even increased confidence during partnered intimacy. Why? Because their bodies remember how to stay in that zone, where tension, excitement, and control all live together in balance. So if you've been rushing, I want you to pause. Ask yourself why. Is it habit? Is it guilt? Is it something you learned decades ago that no longer serves you? Whatever the reason, it's time to rewrite the pattern. Give yourself space. Make time. Slow your breathing. Use your hands differently. Let arousal rise, not just flash and disappear. This practice alone can change the way your body performs, not just during self-pleasure, but when you're with someone else too. And as powerful as this shift can be, we're not done yet. Because there's one more mistake I see men make all the time, and it might be the most overlooked of all. It has nothing to do with what you watch, how you sit, or even how quickly you finish. It's about when you choose to engage. And if you're doing it at the wrong time, like most men unknowingly are, you could be setting your body up for inflammation, hormonal imbalance, and deep sexual fatigue without ever realizing it. Let's talk about that next. Mistake 5. Masturbating when tired or stressed, cortisol dominates. There's something many older men do without thinking, something that seems harmless on the surface, but underneath it's quietly draining their energy, weakening their erections, and pushing their hormones in the wrong direction. It happens at night mostly, after a long day. When you're worn out, maybe frustrated, maybe anxious, and you just want to release, something to help you fall asleep or take the edge off. So you do what you've always done, you turn to masturbation. But in that moment, your body isn't ready. Not really. And the consequences of that simple decision slowly start to build over time. I've had men look me in the eye and tell me, "Doctor, I don't get the same feeling I used to. It's weaker now, shorter, almost like it doesn't matter anymore." They think it's their age, but when I ask about when they usually engage in self-pleasure, they say the same thing. Late at night, when they're exhausted, or after a stressful argument, or when they've had too much to drink and just want to feel something. Here's what's happening underneath the surface. When you're tired or emotionally overwhelmed, your body shifts into a stress response. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, takes over. It suppresses testosterone, dulls sensitivity, tightens blood vessels, and puts the nervous system on alert. That means your body is not in a state of readiness. It's in a state of defense, and yet you're trying to force pleasure through it. This is like trying to plant seeds in frozen ground. Nothing can grow there. In fact, the harder you try to push your body into arousal during stress or fatigue, the more resistance you'll feel. Erections will be softer. Orgasm will be rushed or incomplete. And worst of all, your body begins to associate pleasure with pressure. And that's when the damage begins to take root. See, what many men don't realize is that the timing of arousal matters. When you masturbate under stress, your nervous system remembers it as tension, not pleasure. Over time, this wires you for performance anxiety, poor recovery, and even subtle inflammation in the prostate and pelvic region. I've seen this show up in men as fatigue, low libido, even pelvic discomfort they couldn't explain. One man I remember well, a retired firefighter in his mid-60s, told me he used to feel strong and virile, but in the last few years he noticed he was losing energy and drive. When we dug deeper, we discovered he was using masturbation almost like a sedative, something to fall asleep after restless, anxious nights. And every time he did it in that state, he woke up feeling worse. His testosterone was dipping, his energy was crashing, and intimacy felt like a memory. But once he started honoring his body's rhythm, choosing to engage only when he felt calm, rested, and truly in tune with himself, things began to change. His erections improved, his confidence returned, and for the first time in years, he felt connected again, not just physically, but emotionally. You see, your body knows the difference between release and renewal. One leaves you feeling empty, the other fills you up, and that difference often comes down to when you choose to engage. So if you've been using masturbation as a way to cope with stress, to escape fatigue, or to distract from deeper feelings, I want to challenge you to pause. Don't force pleasure when your body is already depleted. Instead, learn to listen. Masturbate when you're relaxed. After a walk, after a shower, after deep breathing or laughter. Not when you're mentally drained and physically shutting down. That small shift in timing can make a massive difference in how your body responds and in how you feel the next day. And that brings us to the part most men miss entirely. Because now that you know the 5 silent mistakes that may be damaging your sexual health, the next question becomes, what exactly should you start doing instead? What actions can you take today, not tomorrow, not next month, to begin reversing the damage and rebuilding your sexual vitality from the inside out? That's exactly what we'll cover next. 6. What you need to do today. If you've seen yourself in any of these mistakes, and let's be honest, most men over 60 are making at least one, then today is the day to stop just thinking about it and start taking action. Not tomorrow, not when it's more convenient, not after you've watched 10 more videos. Today. Because every time you ignore these patterns, your body pays for it. Not with loud warnings, but with slow, silent changes. A little less sensation here, a little more difficulty staying hard there, a bit more frustration, a bit less confidence, until you wake up one day wondering where your vitality went and whether you can ever get it back. But the truth is, you can. I've seen it happen. Not overnight, not through some magic pill, but through small intentional changes made with purpose and consistency. So, what do you need to do today? First, take a moment to look at your habits without shame. This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Ask yourself honestly, am I overstimulating my brain with constant digital content? Am I rushing through the act, just going through the motions? Am I ignoring posture, cutting off the very blood flow my body needs? Am I treating masturbation like a mechanical routine instead of a form of self-respect and care? Am I pushing through fatigue and stress, forcing pleasure when my body is crying out for rest? If any of those hit home, here's your first step. Pause, not stop entirely. Just pause long enough to reset. Give your body a break from overstimulation. Take a few days to reconnect with how you actually feel. When you do engage, do it with intention. Sit or lie in a way that supports blood flow. Breathe deeply. Take your time. No rushing, no pressure, just presence. If your mind wanders, bring it back. If you feel tension, relax. Think of it not as a task, but as practice. Practice in rebuilding connection with your body. Next, choose the right time. Don't make this something you do out of stress or habit. Make it something you do when your body is ready, after a walk, after some light stretching, after laughter, after silence. That's when your body is primed for arousal. That's when hormones are aligned and circulation is strong. That's when pleasure becomes restorative, not draining. And finally, be patient. If you've spent years, maybe decades, developing patterns that don't serve you, don't expect to undo them in 1 week. Healing takes time, but it happens faster than you think when you give your body what it truly needs. And more than anything, it needs your attention. Not from a place of frustration or fear, but from care. From the part of you that knows you're still a man, still capable, still worthy of feeling alive and connected in your body. I've watched men in their 70s and 80s reclaim a level of sexual confidence they thought they'd lost forever. Not by chasing youth, but by learning to meet their body where it is. Today, not 20 years ago. They stopped rushing. They stopped numbing. They stopped waiting for someone else to fix it. They took ownership of their own habits and made room for something better. So if you take nothing else from this message, take this. You are not broken. You are not past your prime. But you do need to stop doing the things that are quietly, silently hurting you. You do need to listen to what your body is asking for. And you do need to act, not later, not eventually, today. Because in the end, it's not about what's been lost. It's about what can still be gained if you're willing to make the shift. And speaking of that, let's talk about what all of this truly means. Because now that you know the 5 mistakes and how to begin correcting them, there's one final piece you need to hear. Something deeper, something every older man should carry with him, not just for his sexual health, but for his dignity, his confidence, and his legacy as a man. Let's bring it all home together. 7. Conclusion. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you not just for listening, but for caring, for showing up for yourself in a way that too many men ignore until it's too late. Talking about masturbation, especially in older age, takes courage. It's not something most men grew up discussing, but the truth is your habits, how you care for your body, how you treat your sexuality, still matter. They always have, and today they matter more than ever. We've talked about 5 specific mistakes, each one small on its own, easy to dismiss, easy to repeat without thinking, but together they add up to something bigger. First, there's overstimulation from pornography, rewiring your brain in ways that weaken desire, flatten arousal, and disconnect you from real intimacy. Then there's the habit of masturbating without presence or intention, treating it like a mechanical act, and in doing so, training your body to stop feeling. We looked at posture and how something as simple as sitting the wrong way can silently cut off the very blood flow your erections depend on. Then we talked about rushing to climax, skipping the slow buildup your nervous system needs to stay strong and responsive. And finally, we uncovered how masturbating while tired or stressed throws your hormones out of balance, weakening your system from the inside out. Now, I want to be honest with you, these habits don't make you a bad person. They don't make you broken. They make you human. Life is busy. Stress creeps in. Old routines feel comfortable, but if those routines are slowly stealing your vitality, your confidence, your pleasure, then it's time to let them go. You deserve more than quiet decline. You deserve a chance to reconnect with the part of you that still feels alive, still desires, still responds. And that's what this message is really about. Not just mistakes, not just warnings, but a return. A return to yourself, a return to awareness, a return to dignity. I've sat across from men in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who believe their best days were behind them. Men who thought the loss of desire, weak erections, or disconnection from intimacy was just part of getting old. But what I've seen time and time again is this. When those men took their health into their own hands, when they stopped ignoring what their body was telling them, something began to change. Slowly, yes, quietly at first. But then momentum built, blood flow improved, energy returned, confidence rose, and often so did their ability to connect, to feel, to perform. Not like they did at 20, but like a man who's earned every year and still wants to feel proud of the body he lives in. You don't need to chase youth, but you do need to protect the quality of your later years, and sexual health is part of that. Deeply. It's not just about sex, it's about identity, it's about power, it's about how you relate to yourself when no one else is watching. So what happens now? Now, you take what you've learned and decide how you want to move forward. You pause before reaching for a screen. You slow down and breathe. You choose a better posture. You stop rushing. You listen to your energy. You begin, step by step, to build a habit that works for your body instead of against it. And when you stumble, and you will, you come back to awareness. You remind yourself that every small shift you make is a win, not for perfection, but for progress. You still have time. You still have the ability. You still have the right to feel connected, powerful, and in control of your sexuality. So take it. Claim it. Not from fear, but from strength. Not because someone told you to, but because deep down, you know you're worth the effort. You've carried yourself through decades of life. Now carry yourself into this next chapter with clarity, with intention, and with the self-respect that every man deserves, especially you. And if this message helped you in any way, share it. Pass it on to another man who might be suffering in silence. Let's open the door for honest, powerful conversations about aging, masculinity, and health. Because the truth is, we don't lose ourselves as we age, we just forget how to listen. But now you remember, and that's the beginning of something better.